It is 3 p.m. in New York, 7 in London, and 4 on a Thursday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. You're watching ARIRANG Korea's only global network. There were no surprises in final rate-setting session for outgoing Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jong-un, whose four-year term ends at the end of this month. The central bank has left its key interest rate unchanged at 2.5% for the 10th straight month in March. Following its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday, the BOK said the economy at home and abroad are continuing to recover at a moderate pace, but did note the risks coming from emerging markets. The nation's inflation rate ran below the central bank's target band for the 21st straight month in February, standing at 1%. Meanwhile, Korea's Finance Minister Hyun Ho-seok says the government will work on minimizing the impact of emerging market uncertainties stemming from the U.S. Federal Reserve's stimulus tapering. In a meeting with other policymakers Thursday, Minister Hyun said the government will strengthen its monitoring of emerging economies so it can react to fluctuations before they have a significant impact on the Korean economy and foreign currency markets. He added that the government will establish strategies to further cooperate with these countries, saying those markets make up half of the world's GDP. The country's 3 mobile carriers are facing additional penalties from the nation's telecom watchdog as they enter a 45-day government order suspension of business on this Thursday. The Korea Communications Commission says it will levy more than 30 billion won, that's roughly $28 million, in fines on all 3 carriers for igniting unfair competition and overheating the market in January and February. The KCC will also suspend leading mobile carrier SK Telecom and the number 3 player LGU Plus for 7 and 14 days, respectively. Now that's on top of the 45-day suspension issued by the ICT Ministry, a penalty on all 3 carriers for providing illegal subsidies to lure potential customers. Now, during the suspension, 2 carriers are suspended at once, and the companies are banned from signing up new customers. In that meeting, Finance Minister Hyun said also that Seoul will continue to push for more bilateral trade pacts with Southeast Asian countries as part of the government's drive to improve the trading environment for small and mid-sized companies. But concerns do still linger about Korea's seemingly insatiable appetite for free trade deals. Our Na-hyun-young reports.
It's been 10 years since Korea signed its first bilateral free trade agreement with Chile. Since then, the trade volume between the two countries has increased more than 4-fold, topping $7 billion last year. The Korean government has been signing many more FTAs over the last decade, with the most recent concluded negotiation being Seoul's trade pact with Canada. The local automobile and auto parts industry will likely benefit the most when the Canada deal takes effect. The Korea-US FTA will welcome its 2-year anniversary on Saturday, but opinions about whether the Korean economy has benefited from the much-contested deal over the past 2 years have been mixed. Last year, the government said Seoul's trade surplus with Washington jumped 44% compared to before the deal was ratified. But some industry experts say improved exports to the U.S. were on the back of a recovery in advanced economies rather than the bilateral trade deal. It remains to be seen whether the government and experts will be able to evaluate the economic effects of the Korea-US deal with one voice this year. Another trade deal drawing much attention is the Korea-China FTA. The 10th round of negotiations will take place in Korea this month. The draft for tariff concession on highly sensitive items, mostly being agricultural products from Korea, has been exchanged and will be discussed in detail at the upcoming talks. Although analysts estimate Korea's GDP will increase by up to 3% in the 10 years after the deal is signed, skeptics say the bilateral pact will devastate Korea's agricultural sector. Those for and against the government's initiative to sign more free trade deals continue to lock horns, and it's still unclear whether the government's ongoing FTA negotiations will help or harm the Korean economy. Na-hyun-kyung, ARIRANG News.
A trio of private companies have announced plans to install EV charging stations at one of the nation's biggest retail outlets as Korea gears up for the International Electric Vehicle Expo on Korea's southernmost island of Jeju later this week. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Drivers will soon be able to recharge their electric vehicles at Emart, the largest retail outlet in Korea. Emart is aiming to install 60 EV charging stations at stores around the country by the end of this year. An Emart official says that an electric car can run for around 49 kilometers, roughly a 40-minute drive on a 1-hour charge, which may be useful for people driving short distances after shopping for groceries and heading straight home. To build the stations, Emart teamed up with POSCO, Korea's largest steelmaker, and BMW Korea, which is releasing its new i3 electric vehicle next month. The three companies plan to build 40 additional EV charging stations at Emart by next year. This is the first such attempt by private companies to facilitate the use of electric vehicles in Korea. The country's existing 1,900 EV charging stations were built with government support. Emart's new EV charging stations will be able to accommodate all kinds of electric vehicles. All users will have to do is purchase a membership card. Users will be able to find the charging station locations through a smartphone app provided by POSCO or the navigation system in the new i3. The move to launch the new stations comes ahead of the International Electric Vehicle Expo, scheduled to start Saturday at the International Convention Center on Jeju Island. More than 2,000 people are expected to attend the event, including personnel from 40 related industries, including Kia Motors and BMW. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now, there is rising hope Korean doctors and the government will be able to talk through their differences and hopefully avert an upcoming 6-day doctor strike planned for the last week of the month. Our Song Ji-sun tells us about the issues dividing the two sides.
Medical doctors and the governments are preparing for a meeting after Prime Minister Chung Hong-won proposed talks by March 20th to seek a compromise. The Korean Medical Association of Doctors, upset over government's plan to implement telemedicine and to set up for-profit subsidiaries, is planning a 6-day strike from March 24th unless an agreement is reached. Doctors claim the government's plan could undermine public health. The government, on the other hand, says the new telemedicine system is necessary to offer benefits to the elderly, disabled, and patients in remote areas, along with people with chronic diseases. The doctors are also calling for a reform of the current public health plan, saying it earns them unreasonably low consultation fees, but at the same time burdens the public because of the high costs for services not covered by the state-run health system. Many Koreans rely on private insurance as the public health plan does not cover the full range of expenses. Medical fees in Korea are relatively cheaper than those of most developed countries. For example, artery bypass surgery in Korea costs 1/6 of what it costs in the U.S. Hospitals have been accused of offsetting their losses by advising patients that they undergo costly checkup services like the MRIs. An OECD survey shows the pace of rise in medical spending is the second highest in Korea among member countries. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
When the latest news meets the latest business stories, we give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Business Today with Moon Gon-yong. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
Opening an era of trust and peace on the Korean Peninsula. Speaking at the annual National Prayer Breakfast. Rescuers are still searching for the missing following a deadly building explosion in New York City that's left at least 4 dead now and dozens injured. Several people remain unaccounted for at the moment, and authorities suspect that the blast was caused by a gas leak. Our Kwon So-ah has the latest.
New York City's mayor has called it a tragedy of the worst kind. 2 buildings in the city's East Harlem neighborhood completely collapsed on Wednesday morning local time, killing at least 4 people and injuring well over 60. Several others remain unaccounted for. Thick smoke and debris covered the neighborhood. Nearby structures were badly damaged by what witnesses say was a massive explosion. Residents close to the incident have been evacuated.
It blew out some of our windows, like in the back of the building. The whole courtyard had glass in it, and like my apartment shook.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio rushed to the scene to take stock of the situation and spoke at an emergency press conference.
There was a major explosion that destroyed 2 buildings. Explosion was based on a gas leak. The impact affected buildings around the 2 that were destroyed. Very heavy impact on the surrounding buildings. A heavy fire has ensued as well.
A resident in an adjacent building reported smelling gas just 15 minutes prior to the blast. Other people in the neighborhood have also told reporters they had smelled a gas-like odor since the day before. The New York Fire Department has classified the incident as the highest threat level possible. Around 250 firemen were on site after it occurred, and there are dozens still searching for the missing, feared trapped under the debris. Mayor de Blasio praised the city's fire department for its quick response, especially as there was no indication in time to save people. The White House says President Barack Obama was briefed on the incident and has sent his condolences to the victims' families. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, as the search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 entered its 6th day on this Thursday, new images have surfaced that may provide fresh clues about the plane's whereabouts. The satellite images captured on March 9th were posted late Wednesday on the website of China's State Administration of Science, Technology and Industry for National Defense. And they show what the site says are 3 large floating objects spread across a 20 square kilometer span of water in the sea off the southern tip of Vietnam and east of Malaysia. Well, the Malaysian government said it has dispatched an aircraft to the site to investigate. However, officials say it is far from certain whether the 3 objects will be in the same location now, as the satellite images were taken 4 days ago. Now, shifting our focus to North Korea, it looks like the execution last year of North Korea's second-in-command, Jang Song-thaek, has had an impact on the political future of his wife, Kim Kyong-hui, who is also the aunt of leader Kim Jong-un. After a recent parliamentary election, Kim was listed as a member of the Supreme People's Assembly. But South Korean intelligence officials said Thursday that the Kim who is listed appears to be a person with the same name who was also present in previous elections. That Kim represented North Pyonganbuk-do province, the same constituency that Kim Kyong-hui was elected to represent in this year's election. An official at the Unification Ministry here in Seoul said key officials were elected in constituencies in Pyongyang, and there appears to be little reason for the young leaders on to run for a seat away from the capital city. South Korea will sign a contract before the year is out to overhaul its Patriot missile system. The new system and missiles, which will cost well in excess of $1 billion, are set for delivery starting 2016. Shin Se-min has more.
South Korea will sign a deal to upgrade its Patriot missile system by the end of this year. Officials at the Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Wednesday that it will upgrade the country's current PAC-2 air defense system to a PAC-3 configuration to improve South Korea's air defenses against North Korea. The new system and missiles will be purchased from U.S. defense firms Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. Although the State Arms Procurement Agency declined to comment on how much the new missiles would cost or give any further details, the Defense Ministry has set aside some $1.4 billion for the adoption of new defense system. Delivery is expected to start in 2016. The new defense system packs hit-to-kill PAC-3 missiles with upgraded accuracy, and it'll enhance PAC-2 fire control system so it's capable of firing PAC-2 and PAC-3 missiles interchangeably. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration has also approved a plan to extend the range of the country's multiple launch rocket system from the current 30 kilometers to up to 80 kilometers by 2020. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Now, President Park says it will be impossible to achieve economic innovation, national unity, or even reunification so long as unlawfulness and public disorder persist in Korean society to protect vested interests. At the Korean National Police University's graduation ceremony Thursday, the Korean president then asked the graduates to do their civic duty and prevent society from turning a blind eye to illegal forms of collective action. She also said her push to root out irregularities in society starts with putting law and principles on the right path. President Park's message is thought to have targeted a strike by the Korean Medical Association planned for later this month, which is being held in protest against the government's moves to reform the medical sector. Meanwhile, referring to Japan's denial of its wartime atrocities, President Park said historical issues among Korea, Japan, and China break down trust and ultimately hamper efforts towards realizing prosperity and fulfilling regional interests. Now, this was in an interview with CNN as the network's leading women for this month. President Park said she hopes that the three nations will pass down a future in which younger generations can amicably join in efforts to maintain peace and stability in Northeast Asia and achieve co-prosperity. When asked about how she plans to ensure there is equality in Korea's still male-dominated society, Korea's first female president said she'll seek to build a society where women can live up to their potential and build their careers. Now, on a similar note, Korea's gender equality minister says the reason violence against women continues is because past wrongs have never been corrected, pointing particularly to the issue of sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. Speaking at Columbia University in New York on Wednesday, Minister Cho Yun-sun stressed that the issue of sexual slavery between Korea and Japan is related to the ongoing abuses against women in troubled parts of the world. She urged young people to help ensure that the kinds of women's rights abuses seen during the war are not repeated. The U.S. state of New York is inching closer to using the name East Sea for the body of water between Korea and Japan. A Korean-American community group there says the New York State Senate's Judiciary Committee passed a bill Tuesday requiring both East Sea and Sea of Japan be used in all school textbooks published after July 1st. Now, the legislation will take effect if it is passed by both state houses and signed by the governor. A similar bill was passed by lawmakers in Virginia last month and is awaiting the Virginia governor's approval. The Korean government unveiled plans Wednesday to develop regional economies, including rural areas, by boosting investment in projects tailored to each region. Now, for a closer look at Korea's latest development project, we are joined live in the studio by Dr. Kim Kyong-hui, the head of KLMP Consulting, and of course, our regular commentator on this program. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Now, the new plan announced yesterday, we're hearing that it offers a whole new approach to regional development. Now, how so?
To sum it up, it can be summed up as the following phrase: from top down to bottom up. Basically, in the past, what's been happening was the central government had planned everything pretty much for this country. Of course, this country itself is not a large one, of course. So in that sense, central government planning overall development projects for different areas of the, of the country itself did make sense. But in the process of that, there have been so much of unhappiness and dissatisfaction and complaints and all that. So this government, this administration is taking a new approach in encouraging the local governments to come up with their own ideas and initiatives for their own local development projects. So this is a whole new approach we have not seen before. Under Nomuyon administration, for instance, the government itself emphasized big time the balanced growth for different regions, but they didn't actually allow they didn't give the full autonomy to the local governments to initiate ideas. And rather, from the central government, they came up with the plan and then they laid out all the details about what needs to be done, and then government support was provided. Under Lee Myung-bak administration, there was a plan called 5+2 was announced, and the whole overall idea was lumping together different regions in a larger size groups, and then introducing different kinds of development projects. But once again, that was top-down again. And so this new administration is 1 year old is still new, I suppose. But this administration is introducing bottom-up approach where local governments are offering new ideas. And the government is saying by encouraging and supporting these locally initiated ideas, government will pump in its own support, and then as a result of it, we will get to see about 14 trillion won extra in terms of additional investment being made all around the country.
So let's try going over some of the examples of these local development projects for each region.
We have so many different kind of examples. So for that, I think we should bring up a map that we have prepared for our viewers here. All around the country, there are a lot of different things going on. Because the limited space on the screen, we did not include large special city projects. We only included the province, Do level projects here, all listed up. There are all interesting things that you can see on the screen. And to add what's not included in the screen for the space interest, for example, the special city of Busan, they are going to focus on the visual art and visual presentation and visual related businesses. And then Daegu area will focus on software development, and Incheon will be focusing on the overall service industry hub. Becoming a service industry hub will be their objective. And Gwangju area will focus on the cultural contents business. And Daejeon will be, quite interestingly, focusing on the defense-related IT technology development. And Ulsan area will be eco-friendly cell battery development project will be their own undertaking, in addition to what you're seeing on the screen at provincial level. So there are lots of interesting ideas that actually have been proposed by these local governments, I have to say.
Right. I suppose these specialized projects are an extension of what these cities are well known for already. Right. For instance, Busan for its International Film Festival.
Right,
and
exactly.
Probably that's why the visual arts projects, and Gwangju for its Biennale, right? And expos. Now, the initial public reaction, like myself, it was quite positive, it seems like. But there are critics who actually see political motivation behind this. Now, what can you say about that?
You and I know very well that every single kind of government ideas and proposal, there are always critics who are saying these are politically motivated. And no exception this time. They're basically saying, well, what the government is having in mind is the June local election to begin with. And also, another one that the government is having in mind is also the past presidential election, where candidate Park made so many different kinds of locally focused initiatives, right? So they're basically saying this is a big concern because government is very much motivated in showing results and delivering results to the people before June and trying to offer them sense of satisfaction so that they can earn more votes. That's what critics are saying. And critics are also saying that because candidate Park Geun-hye promised so many different things, they're saying in these the projects that you saw on the screen, about like among 15 of them, 11 of them had been actually proposed by President Park herself in consultation with local interest, of course. So they're saying this is her vehicle of delivering the results, delivering the promises that have been made. And in a bigger picture, a lot of people are saying, okay, this bottom-up approach itself is good, but local needs are not necessarily they are not necessarily consistent with the national interest. There are sometimes needs to develop something in a certain area, even if the local interest may not welcome it. They're saying so that the micro level local interest versus national macro level interest may collide. And in that sense, just totally allowing bottom-up approach may actually increase the social cost in the form of environment that's compromised, because they're talking about relaxing the so-called green belt restrictions. So, and also more of chaotic development projects where in the past central government was been very careful in terms of like keeping the balance between the different needs, environment, the quality of living and regional balance and stuff. But if you just listen to what locals have to say, then you will just give it away. You will give away national interest to the interest of the locals. So there are a lot of criticisms indeed.
Right, all right. Well, criticism that we expected for every policy initiative.
Right.
Now, there are also concerns about implementation.
Yeah, indeed. Because the previous initiatives, such as initiatives introduced by Nomuyan government and also Lee Myung-bak government, they are still on the way. And now there is a confusion. Does that mean that all these things that have been on the way will be all kind of like shelved aside or discarded? What's going on? Is this a discontinuity and total break from the past? What is going on? They're wondering. So indeed, there is that concern. And in the meantime, there's just too many projects, too limited budget. So need on one hand and the financial resources on the other are causing a lot of concerns.
And too limited time that we have to discuss this issue.
As always.
Something that we will revisit once again.
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
And on that note, that is all from me at this hour. Thank you for watching. I'll see you back here in less than 2 hours' time on Early Edition at 6.